Today we'll be going to discuss about PHP, introduction of PHP. Okay. So, so objectives. Okay, at the end of the module, the student is expected to understand the meaning of PHP, know the origin of PHP, understand what PHP can do, understand the reason why web developers use PHP, know the step installing PHP, create first PHP script, enumerate different types of OS and PHP can run web browser database system. So PHP is one of the most widely used and recognizable web technology using the internet. Originally, PHP is known as Personal Homepage, though more recently it's been changed to stand for PHP Hypertext process, preprocessor. The mascot of PHP project is the elephant, a blue elephant with PHP logo on its side, designed by Vincent Pointier. PHP, a server-side scripting language that is used to develop a static or dynamic website or web application. PHP stands for Hypertext Processor that earlier stood for personal home pages. And PHP script can only be interpreted on a server that has PHP installed. A client computer accessing the PHP script required a web browser only. Rasmus Lerdoch, PHP development began in 1994 as a personal project of Rasmus, who had created a series of Perl scripts which he referred to his personal homepage tool for the maintenance of his personal web page. In 1995, these tools were packaged and released as CGI binaries as a personal homepage form interpreter, which included support for web forms communication with database. PHP is one of the most widely used and recognizable web technology used on the internet. The PHP is known as personal homepage, like I said a while ago, though more recently has been changed for Stan PHP Hypertext Expressor. PHP development began in 1994 as a personal project, okay, of Rasmus Lerda, who had created a series of Perl script. Okay. In 1995, these tools were packaged and released as CGI binaries. And later, in November 1997, PHP 3 was released in 1998 with PHP 4 and PHP 5 following in 2000 and 2004. Respectively, PHP 5 is the version currently used in the most websites, included in several new features such as support for object-oriented programming, a consistent interface for database access, and several major performance enhancements. One of the great benefits of PHP is that it's free. Okay? That's why many developers into using PHP. Many of the famous applications nowadays running in PHP. Facebook is one of the world's social media sites running in PHP. Other blog sites such as WordPress is also running in PHP. So PHP development. Then, after being released, PHP understand rapid refinement and development with the second version of PHP being released a mere 2 years later in November of 1997. PHP 3 was released in 1998 with PHP 4 and PHP 5 following 2000 and 2004 respectively. PHP 5 is a version currently used, okay, like I said, in the most websites. Dynamic content is defined as any digital or online content that changes based on data user behavior and preference. So this can be text, audio, or video format content. Dynamic page is a web page that displays different content each time it's viewed. For example, the page may change with the time of the day, the user that access the web page on the type of the user intersection. Okay, so what can PHP do? So PHP has the ability to generate dynamic page. Okay, PHP can create open read and data and close files on the server. Okay, PHP collect data using form. PHP can send and receive cookies. Okay, so form are used to get input from the user and submit to the web server for the processing. And a cookie is a small file that the server embeds on the user computer. Each time the same computer requests page with a browser, it will send the cookie to. With PHP, you can both create and retrieve cookie values. PHP can add, delete, modify data in your database, and PHP can encrypt data. Data encryption translate data into another form or code so that the only people with the access to a secret key, formerly called a decryption key or password, can read it. Okay. So why PHP? Okay. PHP runs on various platforms in Windows and Linux, Unix, Mac OS. Okay. PHP is compatible with almost all servers used today, Apache, IS, and more. PHP support a wide range of database. PHP is free. Okay, you can download it from the official PHP resource. Okay, www.php.net. PHP is easy to learn and run efficiently on the server side. Okay. Installing PHP using SAMP. So, SAMP is a free and open source cross-platform web server solution stack package developed by Apache. It allows you to build WordPress site offline on a local web server on your computer. This simple and lightweight solution works on Windows, Linux, and Macs. Okay, so SAMP stands for a cross-platform: Apache, MariaDB, PHP, and Perl. Okay, so to install SAMP in Windows and any operating system, first you need to download the SAMP installer for Windows. Okay, to download the SAMP installer for Windows, visit this URL. Next, step 2. Now go to download section of the page. Here you will see SAMP for Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. We can now easily download the SAMP installer for the Windows. Next, step 3. Click the download link. Download SAMP as shown below. Okay, so let's download, for example. Then installing SAMP. Step 4. After downloading the installer, double-click on the executable file to start the SAMP installation process. Click yes if the user account control dialog box appears. Then select your language in the dialog box. Then click OK. For example, English. Okay, we select the language. Okay. So, then installing PHP using SAMP. Step 5. This dialog box below show that you should avoid installing SAMP to see to the C program files. Then click OK. Then click Next. Then step 6. Verifying all the checkbox are checked. Then click Next. Okay, okay. So let's continue. Installing PHP again. You will see the installation process. Wait for the process to complete. And click Finish. Okay, to finish the installation process. Step 9. The dialog box asks, do you want to start the control panel now? You can choose to start the control panel now. Clicking yes will directly open some control panel. Okay? Then please see the note below to know how to start the control panel. Okay? So if you want to start the SAP control panel, next time, right-click on the SAP icon found in the desktop on the start menu, then select Run as Administrator. Click Yes on the user account control pop-up. So step 10, if the SAP control panel is open, it's not already started, find the SAP control panel in the start menu or the desktop icon. Right click on the end, right click on it and select. Okay, run administrator. Click yes on the user account control pop-up and wait for the SAP control panel to start. So you will see a SAP control panel running. So like this. Okay. So click on the start menu next to the Apache and wait for Apache to start. After the Apache has started, click on the start button next to MySQL or MySQL. Wait for MySQL to start. Both Apache and MySQL are running now. Now open your web browser like Mozilla, Firefox, or Chrome. Type localhost in the address bar and click enter. The browser will be redirected to localhost splash.php. The browser should display page shown below. Okay, like this. Okay. So localhost sub. So this is how to install some program into our computer. Okay, next we have the dynamic web page. Okay. So what is a dynamic web page? A dynamic web page is a web page that displays different content each time it's viewed. For example, the page may change with the time of the day, okay, the user that access the web page, or the type of the user interaction. There are two types of dynamic web pages. Okay? So dynamic web page um, generate in a real time. This page include web scripting code such as PHP or ASF. When a dynamic page is accessed, the code with the page is parsed on the web server and the resulting HTML is sent to the client web browser. A client-side scripting, it's a web page that changes in response to action within the web page, such as a mouse or keyboard action used in client-side scripting. Okay, client-side script generate client-side content. A client-side content is a content that's generated on the user computer rather than the server. In these cases, the user web browser would download the web page content from the server, process the code that's embedded in the web page, and then display the updated content to the user. Scripting languages JavaScript and Flash a web page to respond to client side events. And when we talk about server-side scripting, this is a web page that changes when a web page is loaded or visited use server-side scripting. Server-side content is that generates when a web page is loaded. For example, login pages, forum, submission forms, and shopping cart. All use server-side scripting since those web page change according to what is submitted to it. Scripting language such as PHP, ASP, and ASP.NET for Cold Fusion and per allow a web page to respond to a submission event. So example of dynamic pages or dynamic websites like Blogspot, WordPress, and any e-commerce website. Okay, so for requirements, operating system, so Linux. So Linux is a Unix-like open source and community developed operating system for computer server, mainframes, mobile device, and embedded device. It is supported in almost every major computer platform. Okay, so this is example of Linux distribution software. Okay, unlike Windows, Linux has different Linux distribution software. So next we have operating system Windows. So Microsoft Windows, commonly refers to as Windows, is a group of several proprietary graphical operating system families, all of which are developed and marketed by Microsoft. Okay, so latest Windows OS, Windows 10. I think. Next, we have Mac, the Mac OS. Okay, so Mac OS is the operating system that powers every Mac. It lets you to do things you simply can't with other computers. That's because it's designed specifically for hardware it runs on and vice versa. Mac OS comes with the entire suite of beautifully designed apps. Macintosh operating system is developed by the Apple. So, latest Mac OS. So, Mac OS 10.15, also known as Mac OS Catalina. Software requirements again of operating system, Mac. Okay. So, next we have the internet browser. Okay, a web browser is a software application for accessing information on the World Wide Web. When a user requests a web page from a particular website, the web browser retrieves the necessary content from a web server and displays the page on the user device. So common web browsers include Microsoft Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Mozilla, and Firefox, and Apple Safari. So by the way, Microsoft has announced that it will end support for the Internet Explorer 11 across all the Microsoft 365 apps and services like Office 365, OneDrive, Outlook, and more on August 17, 2021. So Microsoft Edge Windows 10 will replace IE. So the new Microsoft Edge is based on Chromium and was released on January 15, 2020. It is compatible with all support version of Windows and Mac OS. So downloading the browser will replace the legacy version of Microsoft Edge on Windows 10's PC. So next, we have the web server. Okay. So a web server is software and hardware that uses HTTP or the Hypertext Transfer Protocol and other protocol to respond to client requests made over the World Wide Web. The main job of a web server is to display website content through storing, processing, and delivering web page to the user. So first we have here Apache. So Apache is an open source and free web server software that powers around 40% of websites around the world. So the official name of Apache is HTTP server, and it's maintained and developed by the Apache Software Foundation. So next we have the personal web server system, hardware, and software that's designed to create and manage web server on a desktop. So it can be used to learn how to set up and administer a website. It can also serve as a site for testing a dynamic web page. Next, we have the Internet Information Service. Okay, it's a flexible general-purpose web server from Microsoft that runs on Windows system to serve request HTML page or files. An IIS web server accepts requests from remote client's computer and returns appropriate response. Next, we have the means. It's a free open source high performance HTTP server, and reverse proxy as well. Linux is known for its high performance, stability, rich feature set, simple configuration, and low resource consumption. We also have the Google Web Server, or the GWS. It's a proprietary web server software that Google uses for its web infrastructure. GWS is used exclusively inside Google ecosystem for website hosting. GWS is sometimes described as one of the most guarded components of Google infrastructure. Okay, next we have the databases. Database software is a software program or utility used for creating, editing, and maintaining database files and records. This type of software allows user to store data in the form of structured fields, table, and column, which can be retrieved directly or through program access. Okay, sample, we have first the IBM DB2. Okay, DB2 is a database product from IBM. It is a relational database management system, or RDBMS. DB2 is designed to store, analyze, and retrieve the data efficiently. Okay. Next, we have the MySQL or MySQL. It's an open source relational database management system. MySQL or MySQL is a relational database management system based on SQL structured query language. The most common use for MySQL, however, is for the purpose of web database. It can be used to store anything from a single record of information to entire inventory of available products for an online store. Next, we have the Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, it's also a relational database management system from Microsoft. The system is designed and built to manage and store information. The system supports various business intelligence operations, analytic operation, and transaction processing. Next, we have the Oracle database, commonly referred to as Oracle DBMS or simply as Oracle. It is a multi-model database management system produced and marketed by Oracle Corporation. It is a database commonly used for running online transaction processing, data warehousing, and mixed database workloads. We also have the SQLite. It's a in-process library that implements a self-contained, serverless, zero configuration, transactional SQL database engine. So the code of SQLite is in the public domain and it's that's free for the use for any purpose, commercial or private. We also have the PostgreSQL. It's an advanced, it is an advanced enterprise class open source relational database that supports both SQL and JSON querying. It is a powerful open source object relational database system that uses and extends the SQL language combined with many features that safely store and scale the most complicated data workloads. Okay. Next, we have the code editor. Okay, code editor is a text editor program designed specifically for editing source code of a computer program. It may be a standalone application or may be built into integrated development environment or web browser. So these are popular open source code editor. So next. Okay, sorry. So other requirements. So knowledge in HTML, CSS, Ajax, JavaScript, and Jquery. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It allows the user to create structured section, paragraph headings, links, and block codes for a web page and application. HTML is not a programming language. Okay? So meaning it doesn't have the ability to create dynamic functionally. Instead, it makes it possible to organize and format documents similarly to a Microsoft Word. Next, we have the CSS or the cascading style sheet. So CSS is a language for describing the presentation of web page, including colors, layouts, and fonts. It allows one to adapt presentation to different types of device, such as large screens, small screens, or printer. CSS independent of HTML and can be used with any XML-based markup language. More developers for extra control over how the web page will look than HTML does. Next, we have the Ajax for the asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Ajax is a technique for creating fast, dynamic web pages. Ajax allows web page to be updated synchronously by exchanging small amount of data with the server behind the scene. This means that it is a possible to update parts of web page without reloading the whole page. Okay. So next we have jQuery. So the purpose of jQuery is to make it much easier to use JavaScript on your website. jQuery takes a lot of common tasks that require many lines of JavaScript code to accomplish and wraps them into a method that you can call with a single line of code. So that's how jQuery works. Okay. And lastly, we have JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript is a text-based programming language used both on a client side and server side that allows you to make a web page interactive. Where HTML and CSS are language that give structure and style to web page, JavaScript give web page interactive elements that engage a user. Okay. So next we have other, okay, requirements. So So we have operating system, web server, language, database, and we have the SAMP. So SAMP is a free and open source cross-platform web server solution stack package developed by the Apache. So consisting mainly of the Apache HTTP server, MariaDB database, and interpreter for script written in PHP and per programming language. So Windows Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So we also have Wamp. So Wamp is a variation of LAMP for Windows system and often installed as a software bundle. It's also often used for web development and internal testing, but may also be used to serve as uh, live websites. Okay. So running PHP. So this is sample PHP script tags, okay, that can display hello world and run the current date. So this is the sample output of this script. Okay, so this is the basic knowledge you need to be familiar to develop a website and also to be a good web developer. Okay, so next meeting we will discuss about the basic code syntax of PHP. Okay, so thank you and God bless.